A fresh new week has arrived in the basketball world, and here on this channel, that means one thing and one thing only. Every week, I post an episode of this series we do called Your Take Not Mine, where I turn to you, the viewers, to give me your hottest NBA takes of the week based on what's going on at the time, and I then choose my favorite submissions and discuss them in a video. This week, a lot has been going down in the basketball world for once after a long off-season, as we saw training camp get underway, media day went down, and preseason basketball has started. So we definitely have plenty to discuss. In order to submit your takes, I make a community post on either the day of or the day before the video, similar to the one that you see on your screen now. So if you want a chance to be featured in a future episode, be sure to stay on the lookout for that. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but it also very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Mark, and he says that Russell Westbrook is going to be one of the leaders in the Sixth Man of the Year race this season, thriving in his new role in Denver. Westbrook will always be a leading topic of conversation because he has a huge fan base after years of electrifying the league at the highest level. Over the last few years, the conversation surrounding his name has been difficult to truly break down because on one side, there's his super fans insisting that he's still a top-level player, and on the other end, Westbrook has a lot of extreme haters that believe he's the worst player in the world at this point in his career, so finding the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle ground. I promise I'm not the latter of the two camps, but I still don't fully buy into the notion thrown out there by the original take because it implies that Russell Westbrook is just now shifting towards the role that he's going to be in on the Nuggets, when that's just simply not the case. Westbrook spent the latter half of his stint with the Lakers as their sixth man, where he struggled mightily due to an uncomfortable fit alongside LeBron James, and then last season on the Clippers, he was also their sixth man, where he did perform much better overall from an impact standpoint, but his averages of 11 points and 5 assists per game were definitely not turning any heads to draw sixth man of the year level of hype. Russ can definitely still be an effective playmaker for a team's second unit, but what worries me is his fit on Denver, which reminds me of the awkward fit that he was with the Lakers, and it could spell some trouble. On the Lakers, a lot of the offense ran through LeBron James for good reason, and Anthony Davis was the number 2 option after him. Russ is not that effective of an off-ball player because he still can't knock down threes at even a league average clip. The Nuggets system primarily runs through Nikola Jokic, and it dominates because they surround him with shooters, cutters, and slashers. Russ is neither of those things, and finds ways to get involved with him would either require Jokic to be on the bench, which would spell trouble for the Nuggets regardless, or it would require the ball in his hands more often, taking it out of Jokic and Jamal Murray's hands. So in general, I think he can be someone who powers a second unit in spurts, but too much of him will clash with what the Nuggets want to do best. The next take we'll be discussing today comes to us from quote-unquote "you won't like this take," saying that Bronny James is the single worst case of nepotism in sports history. Okay, so the Bronny James conversation is a whole new level of contentious because his father happens to be the most heavily debated player in NBA history, and there's a lot pointing to the fact that he's probably not good enough to be an NBA player right now, but got drafted by the Lakers solely because of who his dad is, and the power and influence that he has garnered as arguably the greatest player ever to play the game. It's tough to find the true nuance on this because Bronny was a McDonald's All-American in high school and actually did flash a lot of potential as a shooter and lockdown defender back then, but he also suffered a serious heart issue that risked his playing career. He did recover sooner than expected and got cleared to play at USC for the season in college, but they were very cautious with him after that, and in his return, his minutes, they saw him be admittedly pretty underwhelming as a player. Any objective basketball fan watching him play saw a player very far from being an NBA caliber prospect, scoring just 4.8 points per game off the bench, shooting the ball really poorly at 37% from the field and 27% from 3. Anyone else in that position would be going back to school for another year to boost their draft stock, and I'm not here to say that Bronny never would have become a valuable draft prospect, but right now he's clearly not ready. We also can't pretend that teams don't draft based on potential either, because, for example, the Bucks just drafted AJ Johnson in the first round this year after averaging just 2.8 points per game in the NBL, shooting the ball 35% from the field and 28% from three, so it does go both ways. Ultimately, Bronny is a case of nepotism in sports, but the idea that he's the worst case ever to be seen is taking things way too far. I mean, Giannis Antetokounmpo has been the sole reason that his brother Thanasis has had a basketball career, and we even see examples of nepotism in coaching and running front offices as well, with one example being former Executive of the Year winner Jerry Colangelo handing off his presidential duties of the Suns to his son Brian Colangelo on two separate occasions, because after he gave Brian the job with Phoenix, he also then later did it with the 76ers. So even though LeBron and Bronny's situation gets far more buzz because of the attention that LeBron attracts, this is definitely not any worse than situations that have been happening throughout the history of professional sports. And finally, the last take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Mason, and he says that Rob Dillingham is going to be the best player from this year's draft class and is an all-star in the making. So as I said in the intro, the preseason is underway, where we've already seen a few teams get some warm-up run under their belts to ease into the new season. Preseason play for the most part doesn't mean anything significant at all, but it is a time that we can at least see the rookies get their first glimpse of competition at the NBA level. Rob Dillingham's first preseason game was pretty electric, and every impressive aspect of his game as a prospect was on full display. Throughout most of the pre-draft process, I did genuinely view Dillingham as the most talented offensive player in the class because his ability to keep a ball on the string, getting wherever he wants, his quick twitch movements and ability to stop and start on a dime, his incredible touch around the rim, and his smooth pull-up jumper make him an incredibly tough player to guard, and he just scored 21 points in his first preseason game where he did a little bit of everything that I just described. I'm not exaggerating when I say that when Kyrie Irving retires, Rob Dillingham has a chance to claim the title of the best handles in the NBA one day, because he's that crafty with it and his bag is ridiculously deep. The concern with Dillingham has always been on the defensive end though, as he is currently the lightest player in the entire NBA weight-wise, and being that undersized is going to create matchup nightmares, unfortunately. This draft class genuinely doesn't have a clear-cut stud either, so Dillingham has as good of a chance as anyone to come out as the best of the bunch, but it will ultimately come down to whether he can be at least a league average defender or not, because if he's a Trae Young level liability on defense, it's going to limit his upside. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about the takes discussed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.